Hey there everybody, welcome to Stickman Painting Studio. I'm Stacey, and after a vote on our Facebook page, we had a contest between two paintings, and the contest was to decide which painting I would teach next. And the winner was this lovely wood panel with a sunset and a palm tree on a little island. So go ahead, put on your apron, get all your painting stuff together, and we'll get started. All right, everybody, so by now you should have your painting supplies together. At the bottom of the screen, I have listed all of the paint colors you're gonna need. I like to use Blick paint, and I'm using the academic Blickcrylics. So that should say that at the bottom of the screen what I'm all using. But I like to just use a standard paper plate. You're welcome to use a palette if you want. I also use just paper towel, but if you got paint rags, the choice is yours on what you want to use. And then I just got a couple different size brushes here. I got a larger brush, a medium-sized brush, and then a couple smaller brushes. The smaller brushes are going to work really nice for when we get to our palm tree. And if this is your first time joining us, welcome. If this is if you're coming back to watch us and learn more, welcome back. But how this works, I'm just going to go ahead and start painting, and then you can join in whenever you'd like. So here are all the colors I'm using, and I'm going to be starting with our really nice reddish sunset background. And I'm going to start kind of in the middle-ish section here, working my way out. And I want the middle section to be a little brighter and then get darker towards the edges. So I'm actually going to start with a little bit of this red. I'm also going to mix a little bit. I got this really nice pinky color. I'm going to go ahead and mix that in. It's going to make it nice and vibrant, nice and bright. And you are more than welcome to use some mediums for your paint. Mediums help make your paint flow nice. I'm just going to use some water. All right, now on a wood board, so I'm going to be going ahead back and forth. Nice loose marks here. And on a board, you're going to notice that the paint is going to absorb into the wood. And wood boards, you can get those at Hobby Lobby, Michael's, you can order them online. But I'm going to go ahead, add a little white to my paint this time, and you can see it brightens it up just a little bit. Maybe a little too much for my liking, but I can always go back and cover that up. So it's going back and forth, and I'm slowly going to be going out, getting darker as I go out. And I want to do all of this while the paint is wet. Feel free to dry your paint or rinse your paintbrush every now and then. There we go. And then doing this all while the paint is wet is going to help get some of those lines nice and blended between the transitions. The transitions of paint color, that is, if you're wondering what are you talking about, a transition. And then you can go back into some areas to kind of layer the paint up if you don't want the wood showing through too much. It's really noisy. Noisy, noisy. All right, and then as I get towards the edges here, I'm going to go ahead and mix a little bit of blue with my red. You could even add a little bit of a fluorescent color in there. And then we're going to get a real nice, kind of deeper purple towards these edges. A little too bright there. And as you can see, I am letting some of the wood show in some spots because it's a wood board. That's okay. You can do that. And as you can see, as I'm building this up here, you should be able to tell that my edges are a little darker, and then towards where our sun setting is going to go, it's going to be a lot brighter. Okay, so we are going to be layering this up, and I am going to be going back in with some bright yellows, some oranges, but I got to let this dry first. And some people like to go ahead and use a hair dryer. Feel free to do that if you want your paint to dry faster. Otherwise, you can take a break and come back when you're ready. We will be here when you come back. Everybody, your painting should be dry, and next thing we're going to be doing is working on this part of the painting here. Not the actual sun that's setting, but if you notice behind here, it is a little brighter to reference the right part of the sun. And we're gonna start putting in those marks there, and we're also gonna be starting to lay out our water below. Now I'm sticking with my larger brush, and I'm gonna be using yellow, and I'm also gonna be using orange. And I'm gonna start with orange, and I'm gonna go ahead and mix a little white with it. Getting a little bit on each side there, if you can see what I'm doing. And the nice thing about working with these panels here, if yours has 4 segments, I'm going to be starting with this segment here, the second one from the bottom. I'm going to go ahead, back and forth marks. And if you notice, this time I'm keeping my marks a little bit smaller. And they're kind of curving, so they're starting in, going out a little bit, and then going back in. And then I'm just going to have a little bit scale onto this panel here. And then same thing on the other side. Kind of curve out a little bit. And then maybe start to go in a little bit. And then we're starting to form a real nice backdrop for our sun. I'm grabbing a little yellow this time. I didn't rinse my brush out, just because these colors are going to work nice together. And I'm starting to get this really nice orangey yellow color. And now that I added a little layer of yellow on there, I'm going to let that dry. And I'm going to go ahead, grab a little white, mix it in with the orange again. And underneath here, even smaller marks. And I'm just going back and forth to the bottom. And they're a little random, and I'm leaving some marks of the dark background color show through just a little bit. Just because in real life, you're going to have some lighter areas of water reflecting, some darker areas. There we go. Okay. Now moving forward, I will go ahead, add a little yellow too. You can be a little sporadic with the yellow this time. And I do want to add more to this, but I'm going to let this dry. And if you notice in the sky here, there are some really fun little wispy marks. We're going to start adding some of those. I'm going to put my big brush in the water, and I'm going to grab a medium-sized brush. I'm going to tap off the extra water. Now, if you've noticed, I have been keeping my brushes in the water. That's personal choice and personal preference. But this way, if you put them in there, you don't have to worry about cleaning them really well in between uses. And your bristles will stay nice and wet. and you can clean them really well at the end, and you don't have to worry about the paint crusting in there. So for these really fun wispy marks, I'm going to be using the yellow again. I'm going to be using the orange again. And you could just go in, let's just say grab some orange, and you could just go in real nice and wispy. You can have some bigger. You could rotate your brush, have some a little shorter and a little fatter. But this is kind of representing when the sun sets and there's some clouds in the sky, and that sun is just kind of kissing portions of the clouds. And some of the paint can get a little thicker too. You can have this kind of go all the way around. I'm not doing this on that bottom lower panel though, just because that is actually where our water is. And then the top three are our sky. Now you can go into a lot of detail. I'm going to start going in with some orange and white with my medium brush. And from there, that actually looks like I have a little too much white in there, so I'm just going to add a little more orange to my white. There we go. And that's the nice thing about this, is if you don't like something, you can always just go back over it. We're all learning here. Nice learning process. And some of these, you know, play around with the pressure too on the brush. You can press real hard on some, go a little lighter where you're not pressing very hard, and just see the difference. Some of these can go off the wood panel. And then I am going to add a little bit of yellow to some of these. Just change the color up a little bit on some of these little wispy clouds in the sky. All right. So play around with those for a little bit, and then once you're ready, you can go ahead. I'm going to stick with my medium brush, and I'm going to go ahead and go back into this area here and into where the sun's going to be reflecting in the water. Sticking with the medium brush, and I'm going to go ahead. The paint should be a little bit dry, a little more dry anyways, and I can deepen this color up a little more. Just because I feel like it's too pale and too pasty for a sunset. So just getting a little brighter with these colors. It's going to make all the difference. And then with your medium brush, definitely get down here into the reflections. Keep the marks a little random. Yeah. And this painting's just fun. Reminds me of summer, which while we're recording this is going to be ending in about a month or so. So hold on to summer as long as we can. And then in the sky, if you want to, stick them with my medium brush. I'm going to grab a little red, and then you could add some little red wispy marks in here too. They can overlap some of the orange and the yellow ones. They can be standing alone by themselves. There we go. Okay. So go ahead and keep working and finishing up where the sun is going to be going with the reflections underneath, and then our fun little wisps of color that represent our clouds. And once you are done with that, go ahead, dry your painting, or you can let it air dry, whatever you want to do. And then once you come back, we'll go ahead and we'll finish up our sun and our little island with the tree. Okay, everybody, at this point, Your painting should be dry again. And you should have your clouds all done. And then you should have this area done as well. And the next thing we're going to be doing is we're going to go ahead and we're going to be putting in the first layer of our setting sun. And then we're going to go ahead and put a first layer in of our horizon line. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to put in our little island. And maybe do some little touch-ups in the water. Now that this is dry and you can kind of see where you need to do some touch-ups, I am going to go ahead, medium brush. I'm cleaning it out. You might not be able to see me cleaning it out, but cleaning it out. Gonna dry my brush off. Grabbing my paint plate, and I'm gonna take a little bit of white, a little bit of yellow. Mix it in there nice and good. Get a little water in there as well. Now as we continue to layer this paint up, because the paint we're using is acrylic, it should be putting a nice coat onto our wood, that this is going to start acting like a plastic, so when we put the paint on top, it's not going to absorb in as much as it did in the first few layers. So starting with our sun, I'm going to go ahead, and I got to go in front here a little bit, otherwise I'm going to have an angled sun. And I'm going to go ahead and draw an arc. You might need to go over this a couple times. Some people also like to go in with chalk. The nice thing about chalk is you can erase the lines that you don't want on there anymore after it's done, and you can paint over chalk. So there is my sun, the arc of it anyways. I'm going to grab a little more white and a little more yellow using the same brush. I'm going to go ahead and fill it in. Now some people like to do this maybe one more time, give it one more layer. You may want this to dry in between so you could start working on something else, which I'll be showing you that next step in a minute. But I'm also going to go ahead and I'm going to put in my horizon line. Now on the example, it looks nice and bright orange. I'm starting with some yellow and white though, keeping it nice and flush on this bottom part of this little panel here. And it's okay if it's a little wispy and not perfectly straight. Come in on the other side too. There we go. So I got that first layer in. If you want to make it a little more wispy, I'm going to make mine a little more wispy, a little more whimsical. There we go. The next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and rinse my brush out again, sticking with my medium brush, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put in my island. Now island is lower right hand corner towards the top of this lower panel on the right hand side, and we're going to be using black. My brush is wet, grabbing a little black paint there, and I'm going to start with the bottom part that kind of goes into the water. There we go. I'm extending it. I started from the right, work my way towards the left. Now if you're right-handed, you might start towards the left and work your way towards the right. Doesn't matter which way you go. And then I'm going to slowly from each side, making this a little bumpy so it looks like it's, you know, land and not like a perfectly symmetrical little loop or hump that we're doing. There we go. And I'm keeping this all on this lower panel. And if you need to adjust the size of it, the length, the width, go ahead and do that. And then I'm going to go ahead and fill it in. And there we go, we got a little island. And then I'm going to go ahead, while some of this dries, I feel like I could build this portion up a little more. This portion of the water, I just feel like there's too much separation between here and here. And you may be noticing some of that as well. And I'll just do it with my medium brush. You can go in with some red. You could go in with some of these fun bright colors. You could use some blue and red to make a purple, blue and pink to make a purple. Ooh, that's a fun purple. I'm going to tone it down just a little bit with my red. There we go. Just make these parts look a little more connected. And you can do that over on the right side too. I'm also going to add, I haven't used this color yet, and I think this is going to look really nice in here, right underneath my little island. And I'm going to put some in the sky too. I'm going to add a little more. This is a fun color. There we go. You have some of this color that I'm using extend here a little bit more. There we go. A little more on that side. And then as we've been doing this, we've been letting this part dry a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead, rinse my brush out, dry it off. Now from using black, you might have a little black in there still, so don't be afraid to really clean your brush out. I'm kind of beating my brush at the bottom of my water cup to help loosen up some of that paint. And I'm going to go in here with a little bit of yellow into my sun. And then as you can see, that's really starting to layer really nice. Going to mix a little bit of orange with my yellow too. Yeah, there we go. And it's okay if some areas of your sun are brighter, some are a little darker. I'm also going to give my sun a little highlight on the top. Just kind of kissing that edge. That's nice. And then for the horizon line, once you are ready for that, I'm going to go ahead, grab some orange. I rinsed my medium brush out. And I'm going to go ahead, this white should be dry, and I'm just going to go over that. If you need to mix a little orange and yellow together, sometimes those two colors just look really nice with each other. I may need to go back into my sun a little bit. That's just a little too wet for me to put that horizon line on there. Touching up my sun just a little more. And you may find you need to go back in and build the paint up a little more than you thought you did. Don't mind that. That's my puppy Stanley. He's watching me as we're filming here. Say hi, Stanley. And he's bored. All right. Okay, so I will definitely be going back to this, but we're going to be working on the palm tree. And I highly recommend getting an extra plate before you move on to here. Because if you look at these leaves, the leaves can be a little tricky. And they may take a little practice. But if you notice our trunk here, one great thing about palm trees is when they grow, they bend, they curve. They're not perfectly straight. And I'm going to go ahead and start right here where my island is. And then I'm going to go ahead and go up. You may need to go over this line one more time. And this is going to extend into the third panel. I'm not going all the way up into the fourth. And then feel free, if you want to go back over that line to fill it in a little more. Just working on wood, sometimes there's some textures you weren't expecting. There we go. Okay. There we go. And then where there's those little grooves too, you might need to fill that in a little more. Once you're to this point, I highly recommend grabbing an extra plate, and I'm going to be using a real nice tiny round brush. So it's really nice and small, and it's going to really help me get some of these really nice leaves. And you may want to keep your paint just a little wet for this, just so it, paints more like a pen. And I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to start with this one here. And feel free to watch me do a couple leaves before you actually practice and then do this. So if you need to pause, go ahead and pause. But I'm extending this up into my fourth panel. And it looks like it's connected, like this is still part of the trunk. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start giving it some nice little whiffs from the little extension that I did for the palm leaf. And some of these might go taller, some might go a little shorter. I'm giving them a little curve too. You might need to go over some areas a couple times. And then from here, I'm going to go ahead and add a second one. And this one, the direction's just going to be slightly different. But so I got my the center part of my palm leaf here. And then I'm going to go ahead, kind of curve it out a little bit. Give it a little poof there on the end too. And same thing on the other side. Now you may notice as you do this, one side of the leaf is easier to do than the other. There we go. And then feel free to keep re-wetting your brush if you need to. Okay. I'm going to start, and I'm just kind of starting with the top one, working my ones on the sides, and then working my way down. Go. I'm going to get that bottom side. And if you notice, I am starting from the inside and working my way out. That's so you get that nice little flick of the brush on the end, so it looks a little more natural. All right, and then I'm going to go ahead. Let's get this one here. Now some of your leaves, they might end up on the groove. So just be careful, take your time. And then as I get further down, I'm having them kind of start to angle down. Because if you've ever seen a palm tree, as the tree grows up, you're going to notice, especially if they're not trimmed, that the leaves start to go down and the old leaves just kind of die and stay connected to the trunk. If you've ever been to the LA area, you'll notice on the side of the freeways, they are not very good at trimming their palm trees. So there's a lot of that going on. I gave it a real nice big old palm leaf there. All right, and then I'm going to do one more. And this time I'm keeping the leaves a little smaller on one side. And then I'll go ahead and make them a little bigger on that side, just so it looks like it's angled a little different. There we go. So go ahead, feel free to pause this and keep working on your palm tree if you need to. But once you are done with that, I'm going to go ahead and right below, we're going to have a little shadow reflection. I'm going to go ahead, small brush still, with my black paint. And I'm going to keep these a little more scattered and really thin below my island. There we go. And feel free to, if you want to give some areas some more highlights. It might seem a little bright at first, but you can always go in with some paint, make them a little bit less vibrant. Sometimes it might just go a little brighter than you anticipated. But I'm going to go ahead, grab my medium brush, touch this up. I just felt like we needed a little more detail here. And I'm just using some of my various pinks. You may go in with a little bit of red. There we go. All right, and then I'm just going to go one more time over part of my horizon line. I just want this to be a little more orangey. And there you have it. So I want to thank you for joining me today, and I hope you had a really good time painting on a wood panel, and I hope you hang this proudly. And if you bought one like I did from Michael's, it's going to have a nice little piece of twine there, so you can just hang it right on the wall. So we hope to paint with you again soon, and enjoy the rest of your day. Hey there everybody, so I just wanted to thank you again for painting with me today. If you had a good time and you want to see more, make sure to like this video and to subscribe below. So we'll see you again soon.